Welcome to the video tutorial for the Plants and Herbs square border, which is one of 5 contributions by Veronica Gadolova to the Wrapped in Jamie Cull. This is what the corner is going to look like when it's finished, and I'm going to guide you through the process of making it. You can find the links to the pattern below in the description and other resources that we have available for you. Okay, so I've already started with the pattern because it's the first round of the square border is pretty simple. I finished my previous square, which is also a design by Veronica, the dragonfly square, with the color that I wanted to use for the square border, which was all single crochet in the 3rd loop all the way around. And the first round of the square border was only single crochet and single crochet in back loops according to the pattern. So I've done that, and I've also placed some stitch markers. The blue and red stitch markers. So the red goes in the first free front loop, this blue one in the 2nd free front loop, then the red in the 3rd free front loop, and this one in the this one here in the last. And then also I've placed 2 more sets of stitch markers which go into the front loops of the stitches in this round here. We're going to work into them in the next round, and just to be sure that we can find or to make it easier to find the correct stitches, I've already placed them. So this one here goes counting from the corner in the 5th stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the 5th front loop. And then this one, you just go above the blue one here, and then you count back 1, 2, 3 and place it in here. And the other way with this one, go up above the red stitch marker and go 1, 2, 3 and place it in the front loop only. And here, this is again the 5th from the corner space. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, place it in the front loop. And once you've done that, if you want to work with stitch markers, which you can, but you don't have to, then follow me along for round 22. We start the round with chain 1 and single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and then 2 single crochet at the beginning. And our first stitch is a 2 together stitch. The first leg is going to be a double crochet leg, which is worked in that free front loop here, where we placed, in this case, the red stitch marker. So we begin to work one leg, which is the double crochet leg. The second leg is a treble leg, and we work it forward, starting to count from the next stitch, which is this one here. We go 1. Let me try to show you a little bit better. Okay, so this is the last stitch I made, a single crochet in 2, and this is my next stitch, which is my stitch 0. So starting to count from this one, I go 1, 2 ahead, and this is the front loop I'm going to work into. It's the front loop of the stitch that is 1 round below. Making my treble into that front loop there. And that is the first together stitch, which is the 2 together A. Now I skip a stitch behind this together stitch. I make a single crochet, and then, because that's the only part that is left, a single crochet in the back loop, and then another single crochet. Now I'm going to go back with a treble in the same front loop. So that's this one that I just worked into. Okay, and I skip a stitch behind, and then 2 single crochet. A single crochet in the back loop only, 2 single crochet, and then I'm working forward with a treble, +2 - 1. Starting to count from the next stitch, I go 1, 2, and work in the front loop of the marked stitch. Skip the stitch behind, single crochet in back loop only, single crochet. And now again I'm going to work a 2 together stitch. The first leg is going back into the front loop where I just made that stitch. And the second leg, is a DC leg. And I'm going into that stitch around below that I've marked. And I bring them together. I skip 1 stitch behind. And then I make 3 single crochet. Single crochet in the back loop only. And I'm just going to mark this stitch with another stitch marker. Actually, I'm going to use purple. Another 3 single crochet. Now I'm going to work a 2 together stitch again, where the first leg is the DC leg, just like I did in the beginning, and that goes into this free front loop here. And the second leg is a treble leg, and it goes ahead into the front loop that I've marked here. So if you want to count, you go 0, 1, 2, and in the front loop of the stitch, 1 round below. Skip 1 stitch, single crochet, back loop only, single crochet. I'm going to take this one out. And I'm going back again in the same stitch where I just anchored my second leg, the treble leg of the 2 together stitch. Skip 1 stitch, 2 single crochet, single crochet in the back loop only. I'm using a pink stitch marker for that. And I actually place a pink stitch marker here at the beginning too, so that that's done, it won't be forgotten. And then another 2 single crochet. Now a treble, forward 0, 1, 2, into the front loop of the stitch 1 round below. Skip 1 stitch, single, back loop, single. I'm taking this one out. And I go back with a treble leg of a 2 together stitch in the same front loop as before. And the next leg is a DC leg, and that's worked 1 ahead and 2 rounds down, which is here. And then together, skip 1 stitch. And then we've got 2 stitches left until, until we are in the corner. Okie dokie. So let's do that together one more time. 2 single. The 2 together where the first leg goes 1 back and 2 rounds down. It's a DC leg, and the second leg goes ahead. So from this stitch, 0, 1, 2, and that's the front loop we work into. Then skip 1 stitch, single, back loop, single, and working back with a treble leg in the same stitch, or in the same front loop, should say as before. There we go. Skip one stitch, 2 single, single crochet in back loop only, another 2 single, working forward with a treble, 0, 1, 2. Skip one stitch, single, back loop, single, going back with a treble leg in the same front loop as before, which is -2, -1, and going forward with a DC leg, +1, -2. Bring them together, skip one stitch, 3 single crochet. Let me see if I skipped. I think I missed to skip one stitch. So let's go back and do it correctly. There you go. That's the stitch I needed to skip. 1, 2, 3. So now it's done. And single crochet in the back loop only. Another 3 single. Going back 1 stitch and 2 rounds down with a DC double crochet leg, and forward 2 stitches and 1 round down. So 0, 1, 2. With a treble leg, and then bring them together. Skip 1 stitch, single, back loop, single, and going back with a treble in the same front loop where we just anchored the second leg of our 2 together stitch. I'm working with Flinders yarn here, which I actually like to work. It seems a bit splitty at the moment, but usually it's okay. Where was I? So 2 single, already made 1, so 2 single, single in the back loop only, and then another 2 single crochet, going forward with a treble, 0, 1, 2, in the front loop of the stitch 1 round below, skip 1 stitch, single, back loop, single. Now going back with a treble leg in the same front loop where we just anchored that treble, and with a second leg, a DC leg, going forward 1 stitch and down 2 rounds, and we've got 2 single crochet at the end. So now all you have to do is to repeat that 2 more times on the other sides, and then close with a slip stitch into the first single crochet of the starting corner, and that's where we're going to meet for round 23. Round 23 is pretty easy. We are mainly going to fill some gaps, and we're also going to insert a few stitches, but it's pretty straightforward. Chain 1, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 corner space from the previous round, and then 3 single crochet. So now behind this special stitch we're going to work a DCBB, which means we're going to work a double crochet into the top loops of the stitch that we skipped in the previous round, meaning the top loops of the stitch behind and 2 rounds below. And then another 3 single, a HDC BBX, which is very similar to the DC, but instead of a DC we would make a HDC, but because it has that X behind means we are going to work a variation. So we go through the top loops of the next stitch first, and then we go through the top loops of the stitch that we skipped 2 rounds below, or we skipped it in the last round, and the top loops are 2 rounds below. I'm going to adjust the height of this HDC to be the same height as the previous single crochet. So from here, 2 more single crochet, and now we're going to work a 4 DC cluster, and we work it in that free front loop 2 rounds below. And for the cluster, we start 4 legs, 4 DC legs in that instance here, all in the same front loop, and then go, oh, look at that. Okay, and then go through all, and I'm closing with a chain 1. This chain 1 does not count as a stitch, and if we would work into it, we need to be careful to work in only one of those stitches, but because we're going to work behind it, it's not that relevant anyway. Another 2 single crochet, and again we're going to make a HDC BB. So yarn over for the HDC, the half double crochet, into the top loops of the next stitch, and also into the top loops of the skipped stitch, and then working a HDC and adjusting the height to be the same as the single crochet. 3 single crochet now, and a DC BB means we are going to work a double crochet behind and below the next stitch, which is a special stitch. 7 single crochet, and then again a DC BB. So those 7 single crochets should bring you to the next special stitch, and we're going to work a double crochet behind that special stitch. Then 3 single, a HDC BB going through the top loops and the skipped loops here, working our HDC, adjusting the height, 2 single, and then a cluster of 4 double crochet. Close with the chain 1, skip the stitch behind, 2 single crochet, and again HDC BB. So in this pattern, oh, let's just finish that and then I'm going to say it. 3 more single, a DC BB, and then 3 single again. So in this pattern, the first half of the pattern is copied into the second half. So what we're doing here, we're going to repeat here. So it's not a mirror, it's the same actually, because this side is going to be mirrored. Beautiful, beautiful pattern, wonderfully written by Veronica, and pleasure to work. You have to be careful with a few of those sides and a few of those stitches, but that's why I'm going to guide you through it. I'm actually not going to repeat that on the other side because that was pretty straightforward. So I'm going to meet you after you've done that 3 more times here, and close with a slip stitch. We always close our rounds with a slip stitch, but if you've done one of the squares, you already know that. And we just ignore the chain 1 space at the beginning. So I see you for round 24. Round 24 is one of those rounds where we need to be careful and need to concentrate a little bit. So probably not good to watch any TV and maybe not even to listen to an audiobook. Or maybe that. Okay, so let's go slow and together. Our first stitch is a single crochet in the back loop only, followed by 2 single crochet. And you notice that I did make the corner, chain 1 and then the single crochet, chain 2 single crochet into the corner space. Okay, the next stitch is a treble plus 1 minus 2. So we go 0, 1 and down 1, 2. And we're going to work into the top loops of that 2 together stitch there. So just making that treble into those top loops. Skip the stitch behind and then 2 single crochet. Now we're going back with a treble minus 2 minus 2, but we're only going to work around leg 1 of that 2 together stitch. So there is a 2 together stitch at minus 2 and minus 2. We're only going to work around the first of those legs. So this is the 2 together and this is the first leg. So our treble goes around this leg only. 1 and 2 and treble. Okay, skip 1 stitch, 2 single crochet. And now we've got a 2 together stitch that is a bit unusual, so let's go slow. The first leg is a double treble leg and it's going to be worked back into the top loops of this stitch that we just made in this round. This stitch here, the treble, front post treble. So we're going to work backwards with a double treble into the top loops of this stitch there. And it helps just to turn the work for that. And the second leg is a front post leg, but it will be worked from the opposite side. So we're going to go around this stitch here, but instead of inserting the hook from your normal direction, we're going to insert the hook from the opposite side. And then I bring the yarn to the front and then I pull behind the stitch and behind that first loop. And then I'm just making my normal treble, or my treble is normal, and then I bring it together because this is a 2 together stitch. Then I skip 1 stitch and I make another single crochet, which should bring you just before this cluster stitch here, behind which we're going to make a DCBB. So a double crochet behind and below. Another single crochet, and now a front post treble around this stitch here. So we're going forward, 1 forward and 2 down. Then we skip this stitch behind there. We'll make 2 single crochet. Now again we have one of those funny stitches, and the first leg is also again a double treble leg, and also again will be worked in the top loops of that special stitch that we just made. So we're going to work back into those top loops with a double treble, and the second leg is a front post treble that is going to be worked around the second leg only of the stitch 2 ahead and 3 rounds down, which is this one. 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry, no, 1, 2. It's 2 down. So it's a front post treble leg plus 2 minus 2. But it's a front post treble 2 because we're only working around the second leg. Not the first and not the whole stitch, only the second leg. Skip 1 stitch, 2 single crochet. And now again we're going back with a double crochet, minus 1, minus 2, which means we're going back into the top loops of the same stitch where we just worked around the second leg. So that's here. And it's only a double crochet, minus 1, minus 2. Skip the stitch behind and then 2 single crochet. Now we're going to work in the front loops, in the front loop of the stitch that is 3 rounds below with a treble. So that goes straight down, treble into that front loop there. Skip 1 stitch, 2 single crochet. Now we're going forward with a with a treble, plus 1, minus 2, 0, 1, 1, 2. We're going to work into the top loops of this 2 together stitch there with a treble. Skip the stitch behind, 2 single crochet. And now going back, minus 2, minus 2, around the first leg. So we're starting our repeat. See, that was the first stitch of our repeat, or actually from here on. That's the same that we made here. So let's do it again. We did that, we worked that treble leg into the top loops, and now we're going to work back around leg 1 only of that 2 together stitch with a front post treble. Skip the stitch behind, 2 single crochet. Now a 2 together stitch where the first leg is a double treble, and we work it into the top loops of the stitch that we just made, that front post treble. And keep your loops tight there, otherwise you get big V's there, and you probably won't want that. And the second leg is going back 1 stitch and 2 down, and it's worked from the opposite side. So I've yarned over twice, and I'm going to work around this stitch, but I insert my hook from the opposite side, like that. Bring the yarn to the front, pull it through the stitch and the first loop, and then I just work my treble as usual. There is a link to the video that's dedicated to the stitch if you want to have a closer look. We skip 1 stitch and then make 1 single crochet and a DC BB. Another single crochet, and going forward with a front post treble around that stitch there. 2 single crochet. Now you always skip the stitches. Always skip the stitches behind a special stitch. Now our second funny stitch, 3 yarn over for double treble, going back 3 stitches into the top loops of that front post treble we just made. Turning the work helps. Okay, so that's the first leg, and the second leg is a front post treble, which we're going to work around leg 2 only of the stitch that is 2 ahead and 2 rounds below, which was that 2 together stitch at the end there. I skip 1 stitch, 2 single crochet, and back with a double crochet into the top loops of the same stitch we just worked around like 2. So here are the top loops of that stitch, and I'm working a DC into those top loops. Skip 1 stitch, 2 single crochet, and at the end of the side we're going to make a single crochet in the back hoop only. So we've done the design twice now basically, so to repeat that on the other sides, maybe just rewind and do that again. And then once you've closed the round with your slip stitch, I'm going to meet you for round 25.